What's up, guys? I hope you're having a lovely holiday season so far. For this week's video, I am going to be talking about my top 10 favorite Christmas movies. So like my MCU tier list, I want to start out by saying I am not a movie critic. This is solely based on which movies I kind of gravitate more towards during the holidays, which ones I've grown up with and kind of mean the most to me personally. So without further ado, let's jump in. Number 10 on my list is The Holiday. So The Holiday might be the newest movie on my list, and while it's not like a critically acclaimed Christmas movie, it really is kind of a cheesy romantic comedy. I think because there have been so many awesome Christmas movies up to this point, it's really hard to come up with a new one that is an interesting enough concept to kind of captivate us and have a strong enough cast to carry it. And like I said, although this is a cheesy one, I actually really like it. I think that the actors all did a great job with it. I really liked the dynamic between the cast. I thought it was pretty unique, having Kate Winslet, Jude Law, Cameron Diaz, and Jack Black. I feel like Jack Black really shines in this movie. Any moment where he is singing a song or doing something musical, I always find very entertaining.
Are you embarrassed by this game I've started to play?
Also, the whole storyline with Arthur, played by Eli Wallach, was really heartwarming, and I loved that as well. Arthur, he's a doodly-doo. A lot of funny moments, quotable lines. So I do have a funny story relating to this movie. I worked at a cafe in West Hollywood, and the actor who plays our sort of antagonist in the movie, Jasper, the actor's name is Rufus Sewell, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. He came in one day and I was ringing him up, and I couldn't help but tell him that I liked him in this movie. And because he kind of plays a despicable character, he was like, "You did?" And his accent in person is just as delightful, really, as it is in this movie. And I had to be like, "Oh, no, I mean, you were horrible, but I thought you did a good job." So that was kind of a nice interaction I had with him. So anyways, love this movie, and it is always a fun one to watch at Christmas time.
And fruitily did. We both said fruitily.
Next on my list is the Muppet Christmas Carol. Now this one I don't think I had actually seen until I was quite a bit older. You know, the Muppets are kind of geared more towards the kids. It's really a fun movie. Obviously it's another take on A Christmas Carol, but I was kind of surprised about how much I did like how they interpreted this with the Muppets. It was so interesting to kind of see a serious actor like Michael Caine play this character opposite of the Muppets. And I thought that he did a great job. He is not the world's best singer, but I think that he did a good job with what he had. But I think there's something really special about how seriously he took all of it, that he just kind of like pretended the Muppets were other people, and you can see that. It really works.
Such a meager feast.
But very much appreciated.
I believe it is The Ghost of Christmas Present, where they did some really cool shots. The puppet is like enormous, and you're like, how do they do that? The songs are really cute and catchy. I think this is a great movie for kids, but as an adult, you're also like so drawn into Michael Caine's performance. So this one has really grown on me through the years, and I do think that it's a great one.
Pardon me, gentlemen, but about the charity donation you asked me for yesterday.
Well, yeah.
Put me down for...
And because this is my own list and I can do whatever I want, I'm gonna lump a whole kind of film saga into one, and that makes number 8 on my list the Harry Potter films. However, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone might be the most kind of Christmassy and magical in my opinion, because we are seeing this world for the first time. And in the books, Christmas time always seems pretty magical, but seeing the wizarding world and Hogwarts and everything kind of covered in snow for the first time in the first movie is definitely pretty magical and memorable. And we do see more of that in future movies, but they kind of get darker as they go, so definitely I'd say the first one seems kind of like the most heartwarming and magical in that regard. Watching the Harry Potter movies around Christmas time always kind of feels more right than some other time of the year, so definitely a fun set of movies to watch during the holidays.
Happy Christmas, Harry. Happy Christmas, Ron.
And number 7 on my list is A Christmas Story. This one is a classic. For whatever reason, we didn't have this one growing up, so I feel like everyone loved it, everyone talked about it all the time, and it took so long before I actually watched it all the way through. I feel like to this day, I've only maybe seen it like twice all the way through, so I definitely need to rewatch it to get a full grasp of how genius it is. But obviously, I have seen enough of it to realize that it is a great movie. So many hilarious, quotable lines. Fragile.
It must be Italian.
Well, I think that says fragile, honey.
Oh, yeah.
It was so poisoning. It came out in '83, but it's supposed to take place in like the 40s, and I think that that was really smart that they did that. It really is a fun movie and holds up today. Because I haven't seen it as much, it's not quite as meaningful to me personally, but I realize that it is a great one and definitely worth a watch every Christmas.
No, I want an official red undercover knife and 200 rifle.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
Number 6 on my list is A Charlie Brown Christmas. A Charlie Brown Christmas is such a classic cartoon. We sort of have a soft spot for Peanuts and Charles Schultz in my family because he lived in Santa Rosa for quite a bit of his life, and that's where my grandparents lived. So there's a lot of Peanuts memorabilia all over Santa Rosa. But what a sweet, cute little movie this is. It does make me wonder if when they created it, they had any inkling that it would end up being such a classic that like everyone still watches today. The music by Vince Guaraldi is so iconic. We hear that theme every Christmas on the radio. I love the animation. I love how goofy it is at certain points where they're like dancing to the music. There's so many classic moments in this short cartoon. It's definitely still a fun one for kids to watch, heartwarming, and just a great one to watch every Christmas.
It's not bad at all, really. Maybe it just needs a little love.
Alrighty, number 5 on my list is Home Alone. Might as well lump in Home Alone 2 into this. I actually really liked Home Alone 2 as well, although I know it's not as like critically acclaimed as the first one. Both of them are hilarious and I still think are awesome movies to this day. If you are a fellow millennial, you will remember how big of a deal this movie was growing up. I have seen Home Alone 1 so many times, I probably have it memorized. I feel like Chris Columbus as a director has sort of a magical trademark, and this was kind of like a nice precursor to Harry Potter because we are kind of seeing a world through the eyes of a young boy who's definitely not perfect and maybe makes questionable decisions, but whom we ultimately grow to love.
I made my family disappear.
And although technology has changed so much, you know, obviously you could say like, oh, this whole storyline wouldn't exist today because of cell phones. You can do that with a lot of movies and a lot of storylines. But there are a whole lot of other elements that I think really kind of stand the test of time. I think like the overall look of the movie, even to like what they're wearing and the house and all of that, a lot of that still kind of works today. And I think that they were very conscious of that when they were making this movie, and I think that that's brilliant. Obviously another great score by John Williams. The man can do no wrong. The performances of all the actors are great. Out of all the movies on the list, I've definitely seen this one the most. It may even kind of be the most personal to me, even though it's not like the most heartfelt necessarily, but there certainly are a lot of really heartfelt moments. I just think it's really become a Christmas classic.
Marv,
Harry?
why the hell did you take your shoes off?
Why the hell you dressed like a chicken?
Next on my list is How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Another classic cartoon, obviously based on the children's book by Dr. Seuss. I thought it might have been older than A Charlie Brown Christmas, but it actually came out the next year. For me, it has a lot of similarities to A Charlie Brown Christmas. Obviously, the story is very heartwarming and compelling. Awesome music. Maybe because these songs had lyrics to them, it's kind of easier to sing along and get into these songs. But I think what brings me the most joy out of this is the animation of the Grinch. His facial expressions I just find particularly hilarious in this cartoon. I also sort of love how kind of bad the audio quality is compared to, you know, obviously stuff of today, how muffled it is, the sound in this movie and A Charlie Brown Christmas, but especially in this one, but it really adds to like how classic it feels. Obviously, the singer of You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, Thurl Ravenscroft. We should all know his name. It's kind of an unusual name. What an awesome voice he had, and it's just a classic song that we still hear on the radio all the time. Such a fun movie and enjoyable for kids and adults still to this day. So it doesn't feel like the holidays are complete until I watch this movie and A Charlie Brown Christmas. They're kind of like my two minimums. Like I have to watch these every year, at least these, because they're the shortest and most manageable. So I definitely have a soft spot for these two movies in particular.
The sleigh started down toward the homes where the Who's lay a snooze in their town.
Number 3 on my list is It's a Wonderful Life. So I know that this film is pretty much regarded as like #1 across the board if you like look at all these websites and ask all of these people. critics really love this movie. What's crazy is I had never seen this movie until maybe a year ago, maybe 2 at the most. I have only seen it that one time. And it was definitely enough for me to be like, okay, this is quite a good movie. It's definitely the oldest on my list. It was released in 1946. Very compelling, very good acting. Story is probably number 1. It's a great story. With this one, I really feel like I need to see it again multiple times to kind of gauge how I truly feel about it, whether it should be at my number 1 or not. I am sort of curious to know like what kids of today would think of it, because like even us as kids, we were kind of like, I don't want to watch a black and white movie. It's not a short movie either. I think it's over 2 hours. So yeah, that really is saying something that it to this day is considered like the Christmas classic, and definitely has these like, that's what Christmas is all about, Charlie Brown moments in this movie as well. So go watch it.
What is it you want, Barry? What do you want? You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
Okay, so we are finally to my top 2. My number 2 is Elf. Elf is sort of one of the newer movies on this list. And like I said with The Holiday, I do feel like movies of today, they have some big shoes to fill. Like what kind of Christmas story can we tell that hasn't been told before, that is gonna have these magical classic elements that stand the test of time? I feel like Elf really pulled it off. I do feel like when they cast Will Ferrell in this role, he hadn't really like shown with the movies that he had done, like his range, what he was capable of. But then when we saw this movie and we saw what he could do with this role, it really kind of opened the doors, I think, for him with the kinds of movies he could get in the future. I feel like actor comedians that come from the world of SNL have such a kind of like target on them. Like people are scrutinizing them like, you're a comedian, you can't do serious other things. And then so many times they prove us wrong with like their range, and they're just so good. And although this is a silly movie, you know, it is comedic, I feel like Will Ferrell just did such a great job of showing us how vulnerable this character could be.
I'm not an elf, Santa. I can't do anything right.
Buddy, you're more of an elf than anyone I ever met.
I just love the story of having a human elf re-enter society as like a grown man trying to like figure out how the world works. I thought that it was so clever, and they pulled it off. They did such a good job with this. The actors are all incredible, lots of sweet, funny moments. It really has grown to become one of my absolute favorites. I feel like I have to watch this one every year or it doesn't feel like Christmas is complete.
This is the North Pole.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
Alrighty, we are finally to my number 1. So my number 1 is Love Actually. Now, I feel like people were trying to take down Love Actually in like the last couple years, like trying to poke holes and all of the things. Don't ruin it for me. Don't ruin it for all of us. This movie is so unique and so special. I love that we have all of these different storylines, and then we see these characters come together. There's so much going on, but at the same time, I feel like we do have enough time to kind of connect and relate to these characters that we are seeing. This cast has so many just powerhouse actors, so many incredible little storylines that we're seeing, getting to see hilarious moments, but also like completely heartbreaking moments, you know, like Emma Thompson. Oh my god, like I'm gonna cry thinking about her scene. Like you have some heavy stuff, but you also have such lighthearted, hilarious, wonderful things happening. You have so many quotable lines and things. Like there's so much that is iconic about this movie. And I will say that my favorite storyline is the Aurelia and Colin Firth's character. I just really loved that they didn't speak the same language, and they're trying so hard to, you know, connect with each other. They were connecting with each other, but they just really wanted to be able to speak to each other in each other's languages and understand each other. The scene where he is proposing to Aurelia and his Portuguese is like all over the place, and they're like, he's come to kill Aurelia. The people that wrote those lines, oh, I applaud them. It is just so hilarious, so wonderfully done.
Son muito claras para mim. Não Preciso di prova.
I just like cry and laugh and have all of the emotions at the same time during that scene. I love Hugh Grant. The scene where they're taking the short cab ride to the elementary school. The little kid that's sitting in between them and is like in like a octopus costume or something like that. And when they get to the elementary school, they're like, "We're here." And he's like, "Oh, that really was just around the corner." Like, I love all of that ridiculous little stupid stuff that doesn't have anything to do with the story, but it's just hilarious. I think that this movie was so well done, and I just love watching it every year if I can. So if for some reason you haven't seen it, you absolutely must see it. So this is definitely my number one for my top 10.
Oh!
So that is my top 10 Christmas movie list. I would love to know your favorite top 10 holiday movies and how you would rank them. If we share any of the same movies, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to see your list. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you will consider liking it and subscribing to my channel to see more videos like this in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys again later.